Good morning. I am Lindsay Dunckel, a member of this community and serving as one of your worship associates this morning. Won't you please take a moment to silence your cell phones? We have come, whoever we are, and it is good to be together. A special welcome to those who are here for the first time in the room and on Zoom. These acorns remind us that we meet here on Nisenan land, that the history of this land and its peoples continues to shape this community, that we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people and to restore their tribal heritage, their tribal sovereignty through federal recognition, and that our own deepest well-being is bound to the tribe's well-being. In the spirit of community building, let us each take a moment to greet those around us, making sure that all who would like a greeting receive one.
Good morning. It's been a while since I've been up here. A Protest and a Party by Hannah Roberts Villeneuve. People sometimes ask, is pride a protest or a party? And the answer is, of course, yes. And why not? Why not rejoice as we resist, dance as we demand change, celebrate as we create community that delights in all of who we are? So bring all of that with you this morning. Bring your policy demands, bring your glitter, bring your Supreme Court broken heart. Bring your rainbow socks. Bring the emptiness you feel for our siblings gone too soon. Bring your Gloria Estefan remix. Bring your tender hope for change. Bring your most garish eyeshadow. Bring your spirit tattered and battered by a world that seems insistent on choosing fear and hate. Gather up all of these things and bring them here to a place where we don't have to shoulder these burdens or celebrate these joys alone. Come, let us worship together.
And we will sing the children on their way upstairs.
Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains. I'm Sophia McKean and I'm your other worship associate for today's service. Welcome to our Pride service. As we just heard in our chalice lighting, Pride started as a riot. On June 28th of 1969, police raided the Stonewall Inn, a gay bar in New York City. Police raids of gay bars were common at the time. The Stonewall's patrons, including trans women and activists such as Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, were tired of the injustice and fought back, resisting arrest. As LGBT people throughout the city heard about the protests, they arrived to join their siblings and numbered in the thousands by the night of June 29th. A year later, in June of 1970, Eastern chapters of homophile groups, which were early organizations promoting LGBT community and fighting for their rights, put together protests on the anniversary of the Stonewall riots. These groups included historic organizations such as the Janus Society, the Daughters of Bilitis, and the Mattachine Society. This movement grew into the annual tradition among the LGBT community of celebrating what we now know as Pride Month in June. It was also in 1970 that Unitarian Universalism, according to Professor of Religion Mark Oppenheimer, became the first religion in America to officially condemn homophobia on a nationwide level. That year, at our General Assembly, the Unitarian Universalist Association passed a resolution calling for UUs to actively work to combat discrimination against gay people. Though it took much longer than it should have, we did eventually pass a similar resolution in support of trans rights in 2007. As a gay Unitarian Universalist myself, I know how deeply the LGBT and Unitarian Universalist communities are intertwined, the threads of each interwoven within so many of us. In our service today, we will uplift these interwoven threads and complexities of anger and joy, celebration and pain, protest and community building. None of these threads separate, all of them a piece of us. Come, let us worship together.
Aidan McCarthy is a young adult who grew up at UUCM, like Sophia, who returned as our Sunday school teacher for a time, which some of you may remember. Aidan identifies as queer and was eager to offer a reflection for this morning's service, but he's celebrating Pride in San Francisco this weekend. So here is a video that he put together of his reflection on being queer in these times.
As queer people, we're sailing on rough seas. Anti-LGBT violence is coming from both the state and non-state actors. The fascist backlash to our progress threatens everything we've won for ourselves, and the government won't save us. It's one of the things killing us. Fortunately, we're a resilient community. We know how to look out for each other because we've always had to. Plus, we're the good guys. The good guys always win, right? Deserving victory. There's an often perpetuated idea that there is a moral arc to history and that the good guys always win. If that were true, we would be gaining more rights and acceptance right now, not losing it. History is written by the winners, so it makes sense that our history books tell us the winners were the good guys. The reality is that bad guys win all the time, and good guys and underdogs lose every day. If you've been made to believe that the good guys always win, you may be focused purely on being seen as good and forget to focus on winning. This is an intentional effect of what you've been taught. The rights we have as queer people were won by a mix of imperfect, flawed people doing their best to make things right. We must accept each other's flaws and tactics. If you find yourself looking at how someone else is fighting for freedom and saying, they're making us look bad, think harder. No movement wins because the oppressor decided it was pure enough to deserve victory, and trying to force everyone to be pure in the eyes of your enemy will destroy you. Whatever freedoms we enjoy as queer people were not gifts from our masters, but things we fought and won from them. Power is not something that is given, it is taken. But how do you face power when you feel weak or vulnerable? Communities of vulnerability. In Stacy Clifford's Simplician's book, The Capacity Contract, part of which looks at how disability is included in political theory, she makes a distinction between two different types of political communities. Liberalism and anything further to the political right tends to create communities of strength. You're on my team because you can do something. You're strong, fast, intelligent, speak the same language as me. Consider, for example, how many xenophobes talk about immigrants by debating what they have to offer a country. Whatever support or love you get in a community of strength is conditional. We love you for what you have to offer while you still offer it. We on the left can and do build communities of vulnerability. You're on my team because we both need something. At first, this might sound like making ourselves weak or easy targets, but actually recognizing that we have weaknesses and sharing them is powerful. We already have vulnerabilities and disabilities, and ignoring them won't make us stronger. There's an intense shame surrounding weakness that leads us to hide it from ourselves and from others. People will always be drawn to a community that is willing to accept them with their flaws. Strong labor unions start with workers realizing they have shared vulnerabilities that their bosses don't. All oppression requires constant maintenance to continue the lie that it is all-powerful. It takes constant work to hide vulnerability, and there will always be opportunities to make the oppressor's weakness known. Keeping the lighthouse lit. If you're queer and that is something people know about you, you may have had the unusual experience of having somebody you barely know pull you aside and tell you they're queer, and that you were the first person they've ever told. Isn't that weird, that you would be the first person this person trusts with their identity? Well, is it weird? They need to talk to somebody who gets it, and if you're queer, you probably get it. Maybe you even did the same thing they're doing. Maciej Gosianowski, a young resident of Poland who was interviewed about LGBT issues in 2019 after yet another anti-queer crackdown by the populist government there, describes being a lighthouse keeper, somebody who gets it, who you can go to without fear. Throughout history, we've used little signals to let each other know we're safe and that we are not alone, through codes of earrings, handkerchiefs, flags, and flowers. I think this is beautiful, and that is a reason to wear your queer identity proudly and bravely, maybe even when it's dangerous to do so. Conclusion. Everything is so scary right now. It feels like we could lose everything, but we're fighting back, and we're winning. You probably didn't hear about it, but there's this event that used to be held in Modesto called Straight Pride, an innocent enough name for an event whose stated goal was to protect America by quote-unquote stopping the queers. It happened in 2019 and we ignored it, hoping it would go away. It happened in 2020 and it had doubled in size. Ignoring it wasn't making it go away, it was letting it grow and spread its hate. In 2021, Proud Boys and other fascist groups joined in uniform and attacked a group of queer people who had shown up with signs to counter-protest them. In 2022, anti-fascists and pro-LGBT advocates showed up in the hundreds and ran the fascists out of town, canceling the hate event. The cops rewarded the good work of the anti-fascists with tear gas, baton blows, and less lethal shotgun rounds so deadly the LAPD has banned them from use. So, the cops won't save us, the fascists won't go away if you ignore them, and we are all we have. The good thing is that we are all we ever needed.
The Progress Pride flag that UUCM flies 24/7 on our flagpole signifies the work we do to make of this place a lighthouse, like Aidan talked about. So greeting us this morning as we entered along the doorway and along this wall here hang prayer flags that were created as a project shepherded by UUCM at the Pride Family Picnic earlier this month. The picnic was attended by about 200 people, including those who identified as members of the LGBT community, their family, friends, and allies. The invitation was to decorate the flags with wishes, hopes, and prayers for the local LGBT community. Cypress's mom, Willow, who conceived of and realized this project, sewed them all together. The idea is that the flags live here, but we will bring them to community events to wave out their blessings. We're going to join in a communal blessing. I invite you to find a flag that's hanging here that speaks to you and focus your blessing through that flag. And I invite you to join in sharing the words that are on the screen with me. Bless these many visions of our future and each of the hands that made them. May we shepherd and care for these flags as we shepherd and care for one another. Bless us as we work to see the futures of each flag blossom into an interwoven reality.
And like all of these many different visions of our future, each of us is bringing a tapestry of our own emotions with us today. Now is the time in the service where we invite you to come forward and, if you'd like, place a stone in this bowl of water representing a joy or sorrow that you bring with you. And for those of you on Zoom, you're invited to type in the chat or simply place an O as a silent stone of what you're carrying. As we enter into this time, I invite us to remember that we are holding one another. And I invite those of you who would like to now come forward. I have placed a few final stones to represent the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken in our hearts.
Hi, I'm here to speak from the point of view of a parent, a mom of a trans non-binary child. And I'm also reading a blessing that applies to all of us, because I think these kids out there that are going through so much can teach us so much about being free within ourselves. My kid is certainly teaching me a lot. I hope you can hear me. One of the happiest times of my life was when I was home with my two girls. I grew up with two sisters, and I loved being in a girly girls world. And here I was with two daughters. And when my teen was age 14, they had been not coming home from school, not speaking to me. I was very worried. And I received an email saying, "Mom, I'm non-binary. I'm not a girl. I don't want to be a boy or a girl. I don't identify as a boy or a girl, and I can no longer have the name you gave me when I was born. And I would like to be, my pronouns to be they, them." That email was a journey, beginning of a journey for both of us that we're still on together. It took a lot of time to work together and to have my child's trust. I wanted my child to be happy and thrive like any parent, but I wanted their trust. That's not easy with a teenager who's already 14 and just angry at everything and going through what they were going through, coming out as realizing that they were non-binary. It was very hard when I kept saying she to my child by mistake, feeling like a total idiot and getting nailed for it as I was trying to learn to respect what they wanted me to do. It was very sad to not be able to use the name that I gave this child out of love. But I learned that I would rather have my child live and thrive, and if I had to give up some dreams, it was okay. We went to therapy, a therapy group for parents and teens, non-binary and trans teens. I listened to these kids' stories. These kids are going through hell. It's sometimes in some communities like San Diego, it's rare if one of your parents will understand. And I saw some pretty horrible examples of parents who just couldn't accept. And these weren't even in Christian nationalist homes. They were in all kinds of homes. Parents who just wouldn't listen to what the child had to say of their own truth that they knew inside. And we were involved in activism, and I learned a lot. My child went to many funerals that a high schooler should not go to of trans and non-binary kids that couldn't cope with the rejection of their own friends, families, country, community. The main thing is I loved the person inside, that my child. They're the same sassy, smart, creative, spirited person that they were as a kid. I want that person to thrive. And that's all that matters. And believe me, it was a long process for me to try to accept and understand the change that they were bringing to my life. My kid's in college now, and with the climate in America, I'm really scared. I know my child's a survivor and it has a lot of character, but I'm scared by how they might be treated in so many places. They don't have the freedom in many places to just say, my pronouns are them. That could be very dangerous just to do that. So they don't have a lot of freedom to be themselves. And I just wish that people, when they're confronted by someone who says they don't have a male or female gender, that they might just use the name, use the pronouns. It's not that hard. Don't get hung up on grammar. I love grammar, but it's not worth it. This is a human being, a suffering young person, and I want to help young people in any way I can. And I wish people would try to get an education. There's more resources than ever. There's a publishing industry that I'm just learning about to help parents, kids, and everybody else try to understand. Now, of course, that publishing industry, as you know, is under great pressure right now. But most of all, I wish that somebody could, if they meet a young person who says, I'm non-binary, and they completely do not understand, look at the person. This is a young person, and just look at the soul. That's all I have to say. This blessing was written by a Unitarian minister who's trans, Reverend Sean Parker Dennison, and has a message for everybody. I wish you a single story, not a simple fairy tale with only happiness, but one life without secrets or omission, without the need for fake faces. One pointed outward, and one inward and real. I wish for you the twin beauties of clarity and consistency, knowing the singular word that holds all of you together, all at once, all of you. I wish you no need to hide, no reason to live in shadows of half-truths, no reason to hide the spark and sparkle of your heart from catching the light of sun or moon. I wish you the wholeheartedness that arises from liberty before needing to be freed. The completeness that precedes breaking the integrity of your being. Unity, undivided and boundless. And I wish for you, everyone, the far-reaching welcome from within, full and complete self-acceptance. Nothing withheld from yourself unrealized or unfinished. And I wish you a place and people who do not want you in pieces, incomplete and partial. A world that no longer asks anyone to wrench apart their heart or divide their soul from mind, nature, or core. I bless you with all that is whole. Thank you.
So this song, Holly Near wrote in response to the assassination of Mayor George Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk in San Francisco in 1978, a moment that I remember very well. Milk was the first openly gay person elected to office in the state of California. As we sing this song, listen for the echoes of the Pride movement in the words. Stand and join in singing.
We are gentle.
Thank you so much to Aidan and Cynthia for their reflections. It means so much to me to be able to be sharing in such wonderful company. As a kid who grew up in Grass Valley and attending this church, I remember taking the school bus downtown and hearing other kids excitedly talking about the gay church as we drove past UUCM with its pride flag flying proudly. Yeah, and I love that we now have those trans colors on there as well. So I'd long been aware of our religion's support of LGBT rights. However, it wasn't until I was in college and required to complete a thesis to receive my degree in religious studies that I decided to take the opportunity to delve more into the specifics of that history, into my history, our history. I ended up focusing my thesis on our history of supporting gay rights in particular, partly because an undergraduate thesis requires a more limited scope, partly also because we have been unfortunately slower as a collective to explicitly champion trans rights, and there is therefore less of a history to be studied, although it is one that we have been very actively building in the past decade or so. I went into my thesis with a theory about cause and effect, that as a liberal religion with an emphasis on social justice work, our religious principles had called us to an early involvement in gay activism. And that was true, but it ended up being only part of the story. What I ended up finding during my research was that it wasn't a one-way street. It wasn't just that our religious principles spurred on our LGBT activism. It was that our LGBT activism also ended up deeply enriching our principles. We do not believe first and then act. We also act and then believe. Or our principles and our actions, when they are at their best, are so mutually intertwined as to be incapable of being pulled apart, one from the other, chicken and the egg style. Unitarian Universalism's explicit involvement in gay rights started with marriage, perhaps because marriage is, while a legal and political right, also often, if not always, a religious tradition. In 1957, UU minister Reverend Ernest Piper was the first documented clergy member of any American religious tradition to perform a same-sex wedding. It is probably true that there were undocumented weddings performed before that. From there, UU stayed involved in the fight for marriage equality up until the 2015 Supreme Court decision, which made gay marriage legal in all US states. But as I said above, our fight for gay marriage did not just aid the movement. The movement also deeply enriched us. It wasn't just gay rights activists who were advocating for expansive understandings of marriage. Many straight people also found the sexist norms around what even heterosexual marriages should look like constrictive. By the time the 1970s rolled around, many UUs were also involved in the feminist movement's push against sexist understandings of marriage. The goal of achieving a more liberating model of marriage is certainly a good one. However, in researching for my thesis, I found many UU ministers and lay people who expressed frustration with the imperfect methods with which UUs tried to reach this goal. Many of them viewed the pendulum as having swung too far in the 1970s towards sexual liberation. Such an emphasis was placed on individual autonomy that people forgot the equal importance of what we owe one another. We were emphasizing sexual freedom, but forgoing conversations about respecting consent and boundaries. We were working to destigmatize divorce, a good and necessary fight, but not offering support, such as relationship groups or robust ministerial counseling, for couples who wanted models for what healthy relationships looked like. The reverberations of this lasted for decades. As William J. Doherty, a Unitarian and marriage counselor, put it in an article for the UU World in 2015, I wonder sometimes if we believe in marriage or just in the right to get married. What he meant was, we had been fighting for the right for gay marriage without a clear articulation of what marriage looked like to us as Unitarian Universalists. As the UU movement to support gay marriage had grown, we at first framed ourselves in contrast to certain fundamentalist Christian religions. They said their faith called for a disallowance of gay marriage. We said that ours called for it. However, these Christian groups had a clearly articulated theology of marriage that they deployed in their arguments. We, as Unitarian Universalists, initially had only a reaction against such theology. That is to say, we talked about how we disagreed with them without articulating a specific UU theology of marriage. Many of us UUs recognize this as a weak spot. As our fight for gay marriage continued, it drove us toward an articulation of a UU theology of marriage. The necessary feminist critique of marriage in the 1970s had torn down outdated views of the institution. As our fight for gay marriage continued, it offered a new, healthy way to rebuild. To offer just one example, Keith Cron authored a premarital counseling guide for same-gender couples that was published by the UUA in 1997. In the preface to this guide, Cron says, "The most effective way I could think of supporting marriage for same-gender couples was to create this guide as a way of institutionalizing Unitarian Universalism's support for marriage, before the ceremony, during, and after." Cron was part of a larger movement of UUs driven to articulate and support a liberating view of marriage within Unitarian Universalism, directly because of his involvement in the fight for gay marriage. Just what exactly was this newly articulated view of marriage? Well, it was a messy one. It's not that we now have one coherent prescriptive understanding of what marriage should look like. That wouldn't be very UU of us. But we've built up a foundation of different ideas upon which we can all draw. It's no longer just, well, we don't think marriage should only be heterosexual. We don't think that the man is the head of the house and the woman is the homemaker. Some of the understandings of UU marriage that I've seen articulated are, well, we do think marriage is a commitment that should be seriously considered before it's entered into. It's something that should be predicated on and continue to include deep and honest communication between the people getting married. It's something which should at once make each individual entering into the partnership more distinctly, wonderfully themselves, and which will require, at times, serious compromise for the sake of the relationship. It is a joyful, equal partnership undertaken in the context of the support of a larger community. Katrina Hoops, a sociologist who studied how Unitarian Universalists managed to maintain a coherent religious identity while allowing for such a variety of religious belief, called us a community of individuals. One example she gives for how cohesion is achieved in this contradictory community of individuals is how often UU churches have lay people, such as myself and Cynthia and Aiden, speak from the pulpit. We, as UUs, value not just religious leaders, but every member's insights. We believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and we live out this principle, in part, by letting our individual truths, sometimes even contradictory ones, exist side by side. Aiden spoke earlier about rejecting the idea that the arc of the universe bends towards justice. I myself has struggled with whether such a belief, one that Aiden and I both grew up with here in this church, is one that might lead to complacency. Where I've landed for myself, at least for the time being, is that it's sort of my religious version of Zeno's paradox. Without getting into the thick of explaining philosophical concepts that I probably only sort of understand, Zeno's paradox describes a theoretical situation in which you can start on one side of the room and take an infinite number of steps without ever reaching the other side. For me, the key to the phrase is, the arc of the moral universe is long. I believe that it bends towards justice, but I don't think I will ever see the end of that arc in my lifetime. It's therefore a belief that at once inspires hope and demands action. Aiden and I both grew up in this church. We're both part of the LGBT community. Despite our differing beliefs on if and what the arc of the moral universe bends towards, I was inspired by much of what he had to say, particularly his emphasis on the power in vulnerability and his reminder that we don't have to be good to be deserving of rights. In uniting around not what we can offer one another, but in what we need. Within the LGBT community, there were longtime disagreements about whether the fight for marriage was an important one. Some people saw it as essential. For example, when marriage would have granted hospital visitation rights for partners during the AIDS crisis. But others in the community saw marriage as an outdated heterosexual institution largely controlled by a government that was hostile to us and they believed we should have been focusing our energies elsewhere. As UUs, our individual theologies are as varied as they come, and still they add up to all of us here at this church together. As queer people, our visions for our collective future are as varied as the flags we blessed earlier in the service. And don't they all look beautiful strung up together? I could stand up here all day and talk about UU views of marriage as I've seen them articulated in various pamphlets and articles and counseling guides. Heaven knows, pardon the expression, I read a good amount of them for my thesis. But when I think about UU marriage, when I think about gay marriage, the two are very intertwined, I think about this. I think of one of the men I interviewed for my thesis that I spoke with personally. Don was an older gay man who belonged to the UU church down in San Francisco. He told me about the day in 2004 when the mayor of San Francisco declared gay marriage legal in the city. There was no heads up that he was planning this, and there was uncertainty around how long marriage licenses would be given out, as it went against state law at the time. So there was a line stretching far down the block outside of the city hall as gay couples waited to marry. Don told me this story as an example of why he was proud of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of which he was a part. Describing the experience, these were his words. When the weddings were happening, people in the UU church baked cupcakes and took them to the couples for a wedding cake. And those weddings went on for days. One elderly man who's passed away at this point stood in line to make sure everybody was registering to vote during their weddings. People from the church came and sang to the people who had that new right. And so it feels like I'm right in the center of what moves me and what stirs me and what makes me glad. I remember him tearing up as he said this, and I often tear up still thinking about it many years later. Marriage, UU, and gay communities. At the end of the day, the best articulation of the theology that I can give is that description right there. It's each of us at times cared for and being cared for, singing to each other. It's all of us there singing to each other. Thank you, each of you, for being a part of the center of what moves me.
I love that story about Don, moved to tears by simple gestures of his UU community, baking cupcakes, singing, registering folks to vote. I take it as a reminder to never underestimate the meaning and impact of our acts of generosity. Giving of ourselves, whether that be love, time, deep listening, or donating funds, is a spiritual practice. And that last one is one that we here at UUCM have a chance to engage in weekly. Donations make up the sole source of funding for this UU community. And each month we share our wealth with a local nonprofit. 25% of our offering this month will support the Nevada County Veterinary Disaster Response Team, whose mission is to assist in the safe and prompt evacuation of domestic and farm animals in a disaster area and to see to their care and well-being throughout the incident. For those here in the room, you may use the white envelopes to give 100% to Nevada County Veterinary Disaster Response Team. And please see the next slide for other ways to give.
I am a poor barren stranger, traveling through this land of woe, and there's no over Jordan, just to go over home. I know dark clouds will gather round me. I know my way is dark and steep, but beauteous fields will open for me, where God's redeemed their vigil keep. I'm going there to see my Savior. I'm going there, no more to roam, just to go and over Jordan, just to go and over home. I want to wear the crown of glory when I get home to that fair land. I want to sing salvation's story when Jesus takes my trembling hand. I'm going there to see my Savior. I'm going there, no more to roam, just to go over Jordan, just to go over home.
Thank you for your generosity. We dedicate these funds to the UU value of equity. We declare that every person is inherently worthy and has the right to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. Thank you, Sophia. It's always a joy putting these things together, mother and kid. Thanks to our readers, Allison Rivers and Cynthia Burton. Thanks for your sharing. And Gabrielle, thank you so much for your music. Appreciate your being here. Thanks to Steve and Cypress back there, and Paul was helping out also. To Eileen for being our chat host, Shanti for the gorgeous setting, to Jean and Carol for greeting back there, and thanks to the people who put together our refreshments, and to Shannon and Cheryl for being upstairs with our kids. Florida postcards are ready. Pick up your postcards in the foyer. The Humanist Discussion Group is this week on Wednesday morning. And the office will be closed for the 4th of July, as well as singing meditation is canceled for this month. But you can join UUCM at the 4th of July parade. If you can contact climate@uugrassvalley.org for information on how to get involved. And this month's UU 101 is fully remote, taking place next Sunday on Zoom. And our summer lunch potluck is happening Tuesday, July 16th. You can find out more about that and sign up. And as usual, you can find out all kinds of things on our website, uugrassvalley.org. So this song is another from the UU hymnals that arose in support of the LGBT community. This one in support of marriage equality. Won't you please rise and join in singing Answering the Call of Love?
The truth in our hearts is our
May we never fail to hear the call of love and answer it together with our whole selves. We bring our many identities to this place, interwoven and complex. In the words of Hannah Roberts Villeneuve in our chalice lighting this morning, gather up all these things and bring them here to a place where we don't have to shoulder these burdens or celebrate these joys alone. And though we leave this place, may we carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. If you are here in the building, I hope that you'll join us for refreshments down the hall, and we will see you next Sunday.